Welcome to the RS Expert Advice Podcast. In each episode, we interview a trusted expert in the electronics industry to provide purchasers, engineers, installers, and maintainers with valuable insights into the product and technology solutions that can help them overcome common challenges and add real value to their workflows. We hope you enjoy this episode and that you learn something useful and new. Today, I'm speaking with Micah Easty, a business development application engineer at Phoenix Contact, which is a leading global supplier of innovative industrial electrification, networking, and automation solutions. Welcome, Micah. Thank you for joining us today.
Thanks for having me on the podcast.
Please introduce yourself and tell us a bit about your role at Phoenix Contact.
Yeah, so of course, Micah Easty, I graduated from Iowa State University in 2018 with a degree in mechanical engineering and started with Phoenix directly out of college. And with that, they have the apprenticeship program. So I started with a bunch of other apprentices going through about a year in our Harrisburg headquarters in the US. And after that year, I started a BDAE in the field as a power reliability application engineer. So with that, you get to work with a lot of different customers, large and small, those that are very familiar with our product portfolio and those that are maybe a little bit less familiar with that product lineup, and work with for the area that I work with, which is Michigan, Ohio, Indiana, and Kentucky. And there's tons of BDAs with different specialties all across the US. So we work with them, again, across different sizes, different familiarities with Phoenix Contact portfolio. And for engineers that are curious about what are those new innovations, where we're going to implement down the road, to post-sales type support. So we have this installed. What does it look like out in the field?
Please also provide us with a brief introduction to Phoenix Contact.
So Phoenix Contact is an over 100-year-old company that's still headquartered in Germany and family-owned today. We have 21,000 employees globally, with over 1,000 here in the US. We've been at this for a while. We started with connectors and worked our way all the way up to IPCs and PLCs for all types of control or high automation computing power type situations or systems. So we have a lot of experience in a lot of these different fields and everything in between. And all that's working towards, as we put in our logo, inspiring innovations.
You joined us today to talk about electrical standards for surge protected devices. Can you start by giving us a brief overview of what surge protective devices are and when you would need them?
So surge protection devices, or SPDs, as we'll probably reference them a few times in this conversation, are used to help redirect transient events, transient overvoltages, to ground. So an easy way to visualize that is something like a lightning strike. They're the easiest to see and certainly easiest to hear, and they can cause a lot of damage. And the goal of that is to redirect that lightning strike to ground. There's lots of smaller type surges, which are a lot more common, called switching surges, that can occur within a factory floor. So a lot of those can still do damage to smaller components like microprocessors, capacitors, anything like that might be more that board level or in the cabinet type component. So surge arrestor's job is to help protect those downstream devices from where the surge arrestor is installed. Kind of thinking about where the surge arrestor might go and what types of devices might be protected, because there are hardier devices that can certainly withstand a bit more of that than those more sensitive components, is looking at your house. You might want to protect things like your computer, your TV, or your router, whatever is that more sensitive device that is plugged into an outlet. But a light bulb probably doesn't need a surge arrestor. Very inexpensive, not as complicated. So it's kind of a way to think about that factory floor and where surge arrestors might be used and how they can help protect that system.
Can you tell us more about electrical industry standards and more specifically about NEC and NFPA 79 standards?
Yeah, good question. So there's a lot of different codes on a factory floor. So when we're looking at just the NEC and NFPA, there's a lot going on in just those two codes alone. So I kind of look at it as a nesting doll. NEC is that overarching code that you'll see applied everywhere from a factory floor to places like your home or an apartment building. It's that national electric code that everyone adheres to. So one of those inspectors coming in from the municipality, the state, or anywhere else might be coming in to look at electrical codes. That's what they're looking for, the NEC. And that's revised every 3 years. You can see that pretty reliably, as NEC is put out every 3 years, 2018, 2021, and then 2024, of course. Then there's NFPA, which is a lot of different NFPA codes looking at fire protection, especially as it relates to shock hazards and fire hazards for the industrial automation. NFPA 79 is what we'll be talking about. So NFPA 79 is that kind of next level down of that nesting doll of codes, as it applies directly to industrial machinery. And it's revised about every 3 to 5 years, because they take a little bit of the feedback from the field, looking at what's causing shock hazards, fire hazards, damage to property or machines, loss of life, anything that's really catastrophic like that, and trying to mitigate that down the road. And they include that in the code as they revise it over time. And both these codes do build upon themselves as they are constantly changed over time. And for the purposes of today's conversation, we're looking at NFPA 79 2018 edition and NEC 2017, which points to the NFPA 79 code. So as these codes get stricter over time, we'll be looking at NEC 2017 or newer, which is currently enforced as of this recording in just about 44 states in the US. So it's a pretty common code to be looking for these types of applications where this NFPA 79 and NECs can be enforced.
There's also UL ratings such as Open Type 1. What does that mean?
Yeah, so we start breaking down those codes a bit further, going into that nesting dollars. Of course, those UL panels. So UL 508A panels will fall within NFPA and NEC guidelines. So UL surge arresters, of course, are used in those panels, and UL Type 1 is what I'll call the most robust surge arrestor of the offering. So that means that can go all the way at the main disconnect coming into the building, the service entrance, down to individual device protection. There's different types of that as well. So there's UL Type 2, which just means it comes after that main fusing or disconnect. And then UL Type 3, which is about 30 feet after that main disconnect. So there's different levels of protection, different reasonings for using that, but the UL Type 1 is quite robust, quite versatile, I'll call it, in a lot of these different applications. So as you're looking to protect against surges with these newer codes, looking at NEC 2017 or newer, where there are those safety circuits, Type 1 is a great go-to to help meet those codes.
And what are some of the features that are most important or helpful to have in surge protection devices?
First and foremost, of course, you want that surge arrestor to work to do its job of grounding out that surge. So that is the first thing that you really want out of a surge arrestor. Other things that are really important that we've kind of seen are some type of local indication. So you can walk up to a surge arrestor and it's not just a box with some components in it. You can actually kind of see what's going on. So if they've reached end of life, you have that notification locally. There's also been a push to have that notification remotely. So those remote monitoring contacts where you can just see, hey, the surge arrestor, are you good? Are you not good? Are you protecting the system? Are you not? And then also the pluggability and hot swappability of components. So you don't want to unwire a surge arrestor from a system because surges can kind of come and go, and you don't want to have to unwire it and work with that higher voltage or have to have time down on a machine or an application. So having a surge plug that you can just pull right out and put a new one in, if you just need to have it back up and running and protected for those future uses, is something that I think are some pretty cool and needed at this point in time features for a surge arrestor.
Have there been any changes in the industry based on market trends or advancements in technology?
So there are some places that are starting to actually monitor surges, which is kind of on the extreme, maybe cutting edge of that. And that, of course, comes with cost as you're thinking about that. But for the bulk of these surge arrestor type applications, a lot of them is just those monitoring contacts. So as we talk about IT and OT, trying to know what's going on, that communication between these different systems, just having the simple monitoring context is a very easy way to digest what's going on in that panel. So it's not putting on the network, it's not assigning an IP address, it's nothing too complex, just to know what's going on. And then for those that are doing that, maintenance or repair of a machine, you can know remotely what's going on with that machine. So is it protected, is it not? Because it's important to know to kind of meet the spirit of the code to properly protect the system. You have to know the condition of that surge arrestor that's predicting or protecting that safety type equipment.
Please introduce us to Phoenix Contact's VAL-US Series pluggable surge protection devices.
Yeah, so the VAL-US Series is a UL 1449 listed Type 1 SPD. I actually have one here with me today. So this surge arrestor is the 1449s as we're looking at the power side of those circuits to meet this code. So it checks off that box. It's also Type 1, so it has the versatility to go from the input or service entrance of a facility or a machine all the way down to individual device protection. The VAL-US portion of that, it's designed for US or North American voltage systems. So this is a 3-phase surge arrestor with 3 plugs for the live and then neutral ground plug. We also have them for Delta, for single phase input, most any configuration that you'd be seeing for those US voltages, as it's designed to really meet those market needs. It has a 200 kA SCCR rating. So for a lot of those other codes that we're not talking about today, That's an important rating as we're looking at posting that external to the panel and as part of that SCCR calculation. It does have that local indication right there on those plugs, so they're pluggable, hot swappable. You can see what's going on at each one of those surge arrestor plugs, as well as contacts on the top to let you know, hey, you can monitor this remotely. If any one of those plugs reaches end of life, you'll get that notification.
Are there any success stories you'd like to share about Phoenix Contact's VAL-US Series pluggable surge protection devices?
So there's a customer we were talking to when these codes were first starting to come out. There was some early adoptions, some enforcement of how are we going to adopt this and look at this to actually use it in applications. So we're talking to a customer about NFPA 79, as well as our limited lifetime warranty for our VAL-US surge arresters. So most everything Phoenix Contact portfolio can be warranted for life using a surge arrestor and a power supply. So we're talking to them about those two different things, and it's a material handling customer. So they have lots of surges going on in their facility, lots of motors switching on and off, which can create those voltage surges, which hurt things like network switches and PLCs and industrial PCs. So we're talking to them about that. They started looking at our surge arresters and these newer codes and actually standardized on our surge arresters to help meet those needs and mitigate some of the transient events that they were already experiencing.
Is there anything else you'd like our listeners to know about Phoenix Contact, the VAL-US Series, or NFPA 79?
We have a landing page for the VAL-US Series. It's phoenixcontact.com/val-US, as well as our NFPA 79 landing page, which goes over a lot of resources and some of the talking points we talked about here today. And it's phoenixcontact.com/US-NFPA 79. So those are great landing pages to help kind of further this conversation. We have lots of resources, as I mentioned, like myself, BDAs all across the country to help with these conversations and finding the right products for your needs. And we partner great with our partners at RS to help meet any automation needs any of your applications may have come up.
Thank you for taking the time to speak with us today, Micah. And thank you to our listeners for joining us for this episode of the RS Expert Advice Podcast. For more information about Phoenix Contact, please visit www.phoenixcontact.com. For a complete collection of expert advice content, including more episodes of the RS Expert Advice Podcast, please visit us.rs-online.com/expert.